cosmetic animal testing, and the simple things you can do to help stop it. Up next on Carpe Diem. Hello and welcome to Carpe Diem. My name is Renee Buldo. Around the world, between 100,000 and 200,000 animals suffer through cosmetic testing every year. Although much of the United States has passed strict laws against animal testing, it still happens. But how much do people really know about animal testing? We went around campus and found out how much students at Montclair State knew about animal testing and how they felt about it. Let's take a look.
Animal testing, I've seen many things on like Instagram and such that are like these little rats and these dogs in cages, and they have like red eyes and like really their fur's kind of messed up because of all the testing that they do for like skin products for humans that don't really need it that much.
I don't really know that much, but I know a lot of the times it's cruel and inhumane. The way they go about keeping the animals caged and applying all these either makeup or prosthetics or whatever it is to the animals, it could danger them over a period of time.
About animal testing, I know that there's different ways of doing it. There are some labs that actually treat their animals better than they do humans in jail. So if it is in the right conditions, it actually can be okay. But there are labs that abuse that and don't follow code.
There are a lot of different areas of animal testing or animal experimentation. There's the commercial use of animals in testing for cosmetic products or for household cleaners or for pharmaceuticals. This is all the corporate animal testing. The short answer to your question of why do people use animals, it's a really bad habit. And it's a lot easier than using animals in some cases than trying to do clinical studies with people. And our point is, get over that. You need to be doing science that makes good sense and that is ethical. A whole industry has grown up around the development of non-animal methods for chemical and cosmetics testing. And some of these involve using skin cells that have been grown in test tubes and testing the products that way. There are in silico or computer methods of assessing the damage that a product or chemical may do. You can actually grow a sheet of human skin and use that for testing. So it's been amazing to see over the last 3 decades that a whole industry can grow up and support itself without ever harming an animal.
I feel like it is wrong to do it for makeup purposes, but for medical purposes, I feel like there's a different way that we can kind of go around it. I'm sure that there's a smart guy out there that can figure that out, but I think for makeup testing, it's absolutely wrong. I think it should be illegal. It's animal abuse, technically, so it definitely should be.
It really depends like how it's done. It's hard to say overall because each lab is different. So if you are like holding yourself like to code or above code, then like yes, it can be okay. And depending on the animals that you use, like some animals don't have the same pain receptors that we do, so they don't feel the same pain. Like it doesn't affect them the way that you think it would. But if you are using mammals and you're abusing them, then of course it's gonna cause negative effects.
I think right now you're kind of in this gray area where you don't know whether the actions you're doing are going to have effects in the future. So you got to medical test whatever you're doing because people are more important than animals right now. It's just a fact. So yes, you got to medical test it. Science is going to find a way to get around using animals and abusing them. So for right now, I think, yes, we need to use animals, but we're going to get to a point where we don't have to and animals can live freely and happily forever.
As you saw in that video, we also got to talk to the Senior Vice President of PETA, Kathy Guillermo. As she mentioned, it can be incredibly easy to help fight against this terrible treatment of animals. And here to speak more about that is Adrienne Borgersen, Editor-in-Chief at Fashionista Compassionista Magazine, image consultant and wardrobe stylist at It Factor Image Consulting, and vegan lifestyle coach. Hi, Adrienne. Thanks so much for being here today.
Hi, Renee. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Anytime. It's so important, this subject, so I'm really happy we get to talk about it.
Yeah, me too.
So tell me more about your magazine and how exactly you got involved in the fight against animal testing.
Yeah, I started the magazine because I'm really very against animal testing. And I love fashion magazines. As an image consultant and a stylist, I love the fashion magazines. I refer to them a lot, but I'm really disappointed about how they always have animal products in them, animal ingredients in the products, and animal tested products. I'm just going to say that sentence again. I love fashion magazines. I refer to them a lot in my business, but it's really disappointing how a lot of the things that you see in the magazines are used with animals and animal ingredients in the products, and a lot of the products that they showcase in the magazines are tested on animals. So I had all this great information. There are so many products out there that are cruelty-free and don't have any animal testing or even animal ingredients. So I decided to just start my own magazine. So I created this online magazine that comes out quarterly, and it looks and feels just like any other fashion magazine, but it's completely cruelty-free.
That's awesome. I think that's a great idea.
Thanks.
So let me know, what does animal testing mean to you?
Well, animal testing to me means that the world is really still very much asleep. There are, first of all, it means that animals are really still considered objects and commodities, and their health and well-being doesn't really mean a whole lot to anybody, which is very sad. It also means that major corporations, big pharma, and government agencies have such an enormous amount of money and power that they can create this veil of secrecy around animal testing and what really goes on and what it's really for. And I also think it means that people are completely in the dark about their own health and well-being. They believe that animal testing is valid, and they just don't have the information.
So can you tell me what type of animals are generally tested on and what types of tests they do on them?
Yeah, many different kinds of animals are tested on. Most people know mice and guinea pigs and rats and rabbits, but also dogs and cats and farm animals and even fish and monkeys and apes, of course, we know about. And even those cute little teacup mini pigs, a lot of them they're used for testing because people get them as pets and they change their mind and they sell them back to the breeder, and then the breeder just sells them off, and they can sell them off to labs if they want to, which is really sad. And a really good example of the horrors of animal testing is that with dogs, they use beagles a lot, Snoopy dogs, because they're docile and they don't fight back. So imagine an animal that would just as easily be your pet is kept in a cage its whole life. It's lonely, it's scared to death, sitting in this cage. It never sees the light of day, never has grass under its feet, and it's just waiting for the next awful, horrible, torturous experiment to happen to it. And that's its whole life. And then when the experiments are over, they kill them.
Where in the world is this the biggest problem?
Well, it's a problem anywhere it's happening. I would certainly say China, because it's actually the law there. But, it's the hugest problem right here in the U.S. because while it's not the law, it's often standard. It's standard in government agencies like the EPA and the FDA require it, and big corporations require it for their products. So big corporations that we all know, like Procter & Gamble, Johnson & Johnson, Unilever, cosmetic companies like Estee Lauder, it's part of their policy. So it goes on all the time.
Can you tell us more about which companies don't test on animals?
Sure, there are a lot of companies that don't test on animals. They tend to be more independent companies. So companies like Method and Seventh Generation Mrs. Meyer's, cleaning products. There are a lot of beauty companies like Alba and Pacifica, and even when you go into Sephora, there are companies like Urban Decay and Tarte and Too Faced, like really great makeup that they don't test on animals at all.
So what are alternative methods to animal testing?
Alternative methods. There are a lot of alternative methods. There are several different methods. There's in vitro. So that means that there are human cells that are created in the lab. They're worked with in the lab instead of on an animal. And these can mimic the structure of human organs and organ systems. There's in silico, which is computer-generated testing. So that can simulate human biology and the progression of disease, and they can accurately predict how drugs will react in humans.
Oh, wow.
And then there's, research with human volunteers. How about that? At least people are volunteering and it's their choice, as opposed to an animal who didn't have a say in it at all. And there's this really cool new thing. They kind of have robots now. They're called human patient simulators, where they actually breathe and they bleed, and you can practice surgery on them. So you don't have to do it on an animal anymore.
So why do you think people still choose to test on animals rather than trying these alternative methods?
Well, that's a very complex situation and a very complex answer, but I really think it comes down to revolving around politics and money and power. So research takes a lot of money, and it's often funded by donations and government funding. So once the research is done, the party's kind of over and the money is going to stop coming. So to keep the money coming in, they often find loopholes or more reasons to push the envelope and keep the studies alive, So isn't it interesting that we know that animal testing doesn't really garner accurate or effective results? So it kind of keeps it kind of going for them. So as long as the donors have this influence, in the company, and the research is funded, everyone's happy. So they'll say that, changing things is expensive and it's time consuming, but it also causes power and influence to switch hands. So keeping the status quo becomes really important.
Do you think there are ever going to be any other methods that haven't been thought of yet to animal testing?
Oh yeah, I mean, we live in a world of technology. These things have been they've existed for a long time. It's just a matter of pushing it through the system and making people realize and educating people and making them aware that this archaic way of doing things doesn't work anymore, and it's not necessary, and I mean, really, and ethically, it's really just not the right thing to do. So there's always going to be new and great things to happen.
Is there a big difference between cosmetic testing and medical testing? Do you know of?
Well, yeah, medical testing can be actual experiments. It can be inducing addictions. It can be a blinding or deafening an animal. It can be actually implementing a device into the animal's body somehow, which is, horrific and cruel. I mean, imagine, would you go into surgery without anesthesia? Of course not. But that's what happens to these animals every day, because there are no regulations around animal testing, and they don't have to use anesthesia if they don't want to. So these animals are like going into surgery every day with no anesthesia. The other kind of, what you're probably familiar with, the cosmetics testing is testing for toxicity and for efficacy. So they'll take the ingredient of the product or the finished product, and they will pour it into a rabbit's eye, or they'll force feed it to an animal. Or like for pesticides, they'll put the animal into a chamber and fill it with the pesticides just to see what would happen to the animal. Like, we're not going to know what's going to happen to the animal. Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense why they would.
It doesn't make sense, and it does. There's plenty of proof that it doesn't even really work, because the physiology of an animal isn't the same as the physiology in a human. So what happens in the animal doesn't necessarily happen in the human. I mean, we know, like with penicillin, it'll kill a guinea pig. It doesn't have any effect in a rabbit. But how is that going to tell you what's going to happen in a human?
Yeah.
It just doesn't make any sense at all.
Not at all. So besides the creation of your magazine, like, what other steps have you taken to help the fight against animal testing?
Well, in my work as an image consultant and a stylist, I try to educate people, and when people want to choose different products, I'll let them know this product is tested on animals. Do you, if you don't feel that that's right, there are all these great alternatives. I support organizations like the American Anti-Vivisection Society, that's been around since 1929 and advocating for the animals, and also other great organizations like the Humane Society, who also do wonderful work and help raise awareness and advocate for these animals.
That's awesome. So how can people at home get involved? Like, say, even though someone's not a vegan, but they're super against animal testing, like how could they help out in any way besides buying products that are cruelty-free?
Right, well, but that's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Because our power is we drive the marketplace. So if you don't want to see these products on the marketplace, then vote with your dollars. Don't buy them. If the corporations are only doing this for profit. So if the products that are cruel and tested on animals aren't selling, the only reason they're not going to sell them anymore is if nobody's buying them. So the best thing you can do is get educated, know which products are cruelty-free, and support those. You're voting with your dollars, and when the corporations see that the cruelty-free products are the ones that people want to buy, that drives the market. That's what they're going to make, and it also drives the price down because they'll make more.
So can you talk more about like the vegan lifestyle?
Sure. What do you want to know about the vegan lifestyle?
Anything you can tell us, like how it ties in.
Oh, well, when you're vegan, you don't believe that you use an animal for anything. We don't eat animals. We don't use animals for anything. So it's beyond a diet, and there's plenty of food to eat. Like, I don't eat twigs and berries.
Really?
No. I love food. I'm half Italian. I love food. There's no food that you can't either replace with a vegan version that is absolutely delicious, especially cheese. Nobody wants to give up cheese.
I'm not a cheese fan.
But, well, good for you. Vegan cheese is delicious these days.
Yeah.
And I eat, whole foods. I eat food the way it was meant to be. I eat, fruits and vegetables and nuts and seeds and whole grains, and I have a very balanced diet. I don't have to pump myself up with supplements, and I think that my diet is a lot healthier than someone that eats meat and dairy and eggs. But it's beyond the diet. It's the clothes that you wear. Leather is not a byproduct of the meat industry. It's an industry in itself.
Right.
Fur is cruel, wool is cruel. Sheep do not get a very nice haircut, on a nice day. It's a very cruel process. So it's a whole holistic lifestyle.
That's really interesting. I honestly don't know if I could ever do it myself, but I think it's super important.
You can if you want to.
So just tell me more about your job at the magazine. Like, I think it's so interesting what you guys do there, and I really want to learn more about it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, the magazine, I have a really great team. I have we have a designer, we do photo shoots, we do video, we do little video clips when we can, hire models. I really try to find as many cruelty-free designers, clothing designers, as well as beauty products. And we just created, like I was saying, to look like any other fashion magazine. So people can just say, oh, I like those shoes. Oh, I like that. I like this dress, and here's where you can get it. It's very, very easy.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So what other problems arise from animal testing? Like big problems that you know of?
Well, I think the problem with animal testing is that people are very interested in curing illnesses, but people aren't that interested in preventing illnesses. People, like, how many drug commercials do you see in a day, for example? You see like 20 in a particular show. So the media is giving you this idea that, oh, you can do whatever you want to yourself and don't worry about anything. There's a pill for this, there's a pill for that. you know, instead of educating people on, really paying attention to how you live your life. Be really conscious about what you're putting in your body, what you're putting on your body, because when you put moisturizer on, if it has a lot of chemicals in it, that all goes right into your bloodstream, you know, and we wonder why we're sick all the time. We're already breathing in all these toxic fumes. Why wouldn't you take care of your body the way that you could? But because the pharmaceutical industry is so big and these corporations are so interested in money, they just want to keep selling you things.
Right.
So they're focused on the end result and instead of the prevention. But the end result often means that we have to test those products on animals, and that's just not right.
Do you happen to know if other countries test differently than the United States? Like, for example, you said China has a really big problem. Do you happen to know if theirs is different?
I think that they're all cruel and unusual, and even if they vary slightly, the results are still inaccurate. It's still cruel. I mean, I know that animal testing for cosmetics has been banned in the EU.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that's really important. And there are places in South America and places in Canada where they just don't do it anymore. You know, like, it doesn't need to be the law. You know, corporations have the power and the choice how they're going to test their products. You know, it's not necessary. It's just a matter of pushing it through. You know, and the only way to push that through is for people to speak up and show that this is what they want.
So what would you have to say to people that think it's necessary to test for medical purposes?
Well, I would say that the tests simply don't work. You know, the physiology of an animal is not the same as the physiology of a human. So, I mean, the former director of the National Cancer Institute said, we've been curing cancer in mice for decades. It just doesn't work in humans. So I guess ethically people feel like, you know, well, we need to test on animals because we can't possibly do those things to a human, but we have to do it to the human ultimately anyway. You know, the animals used to be used as a baseline because they figured that these animals, they also have two eyes, they also have the same organs, and they have similar genes, so let's see what's going to happen to them. But, you know, we also have similar genes to, you know, a banana. That doesn't mean that the banana is going to be able to cure the disease. So it's an archaic way of thinking. And because the test ultimately has to be done on a human anyway, and there isn't really ever enough evidence that the animal test is effective for the human, I don't see why that we should do it in the first place anyway.
What are some side effects that these animals get from this testing? Like,
you mean like death?
Death, yeah, besides death.
Yeah, well, I mean,
that's like the horrible.
What we're doing is we're
possible
taking
case
a
scenario.
perfectly healthy animal and we're putting it in a very stressful environment, and we're inducing something unnatural. You know, like we're putting a tumor on them, or we're forcing them to inhale smoke, just to see what's going to happen to them. So, I mean, so sometimes nothing will happen to them. Sometimes they will, you know, convulse. Sometimes they will get the cancer, you know, but no matter, you know, what we do to them, it's going to be painful and they're going to have side effects. And if they survive, it's not going to be a very good life for them.
So how far along do you think in the future will animal testing just stop completely? Like, do you think it'll ever be outlawed or abolished, or do you think that it'll always still be around?
I'm very hopeful that in the future, in the near future, we will look back at our society today and say, we used to do what to animals? Yeah?
Right.
I think that animal testing will probably be the first thing to go because the science is there and because there are all alternatives. I'm not that hopeful that people will stop eating animals anytime soon, but I am hopeful that we will stop using animals much, much sooner.
Okay. So what other ways can people get educated? Like, I know you touched a little bit on it, but are there any like specific ways that you know of?
Well, I mean, Google is a great tool.
Any good websites? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Google is a great tool. There are a lot of animal advocacy websites. I mean, we talked about, you mentioned PETA before.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful website for resources. You know, they tend to be very sensationalistic about certain things, so people, you know, tend to shy away from them, but they really are a very valuable resource. And just because they're the loudest doesn't mean that they're not telling the truth.
Right.
You know, right. Again, the American Anti-Vivisection Society, the National Anti-Vivisection Society, which is located in the UK, is a wonderful resource. And those websites, they even have lists of products that are and are not tested on animals. So that's a wonderful resource. There's Mercy for Animals. There are many different animal advocacy organizations where you can find any number of articles, references, information, photos, videos. I mean, look on YouTube.
Yeah.
Just, you know, Google
All
animal
those PSAs
testing.
that are made.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you work with Lush at all? I know Lush is super big on organic
I love
products. Yeah.
Lush. Yeah, it's a really good company. They're fun. They're not 100% vegan.
Really?
Yeah, I
Oh,
mean
I didn't know
they use lanolin in some of theirs, which is derived from sheep's wool, you know, and they use beeswax and honey in some things, but you know, never the big animal products, you know, and they're a very ethical company and they're just delicious.
What's your favorite?
Yeah. I like the fizzy bath bombs. You know, those are really good, and they have this vanilla whipped moisturizer that I like to use sometimes.
What's your overall
too.
favorite company that's cruelty-free?
Well, I'm really big into makeup. My favorite for eyeshadows is Urban Decay.
Oh, I love
Has
Urban
great
Decay.
colors. For eyeliner, they have this Tarte Too Faced has this amazing mascara called Better Than Sex.
Oh, I use that.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, I use that.
Yeah. And Tarte has a great black eyeliner. It's just really dark and it stays on, and it's wonderful, and it's vegan.
Well, good.
Yeah.
Like, you had so much information. Like, thank you so much. I really
Good,
appreciate
I'm
it.
glad.
Like,
That's why I'm
I think animal
here.
testing is super important. I think everyone should be educated on it, and I think it's really cool that you're so against it and you're doing whatever you can to help.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.
All right.
Any other last-minute advice for aspiring vegans out there?
Aspiring vegans, just, you know, if you really want to go vegan, you know, take it one day at a time. You know, do Meatless Monday. Look up a recipe. Try something new. I mean, there are a lot more choices in fruits and vegetables and grains and seeds and green, you know, than there are, you know, there's 4 different kinds of meat. So they say, oh, vegan is so boring. I say eating meat is boring. You know?
Well, thank you, Adrienne. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you all so much for being here, and thank you all at home for watching. If you would like more information about this or any other Carpe Diem, you can write to us at the email address on your screen, carpediem@mail.montclair.edu, or call us at 973-655-5158. I'm Renee Buldo, and thanks for watching.